Have you ever noticed that the moment you defend yourself, people believe you're guilty? You try to explain, but the more you talk, the weaker you appear. Today, I'll reveal a ruthless trick of power, why you must never defend yourself, and how to flip the entire situation in your favor instantly. History shows us something brutal, but true defense is not strength, it is surrender. When you explain, justify, or argue, you step into a trap where the other person defines the terms, and you play their game. But power never belongs to the one who explains. It belongs to the one who controls the frame. Let's expose how this works. Defense is weakness. Defense is never strength. It is an admission of uncertainty. The very act of defending yourself tells the world that you feel accused, cornered, and in need of permission to exist. Imagine a courtroom. The one who stands in defense is already on trial, already beneath the judge, already reacting to charges laid upon him. The accuser, however, is free. He chooses the angle, sets the tone, and defines the terms of debate. By defending, you step willingly into his frame, acknowledging his authority to question you. Even if you win the argument, you have already lost because you agreed to be judged. The weakness of defense lies not in the logic of your words, but in the perception it creates. People rarely weigh explanations carefully. They do not analyze details with reason. Instead, they are swayed by confidence, by composure, by who sets the stage. When you defend, you reveal your nerves. When you explain, you expose the wound. And once the scent of blood is in the air, others gather to feast. To deny this is to deny human nature itself. Those who hold power never explain themselves. Kings, rulers, and cunning leaders know that the moment they answer accusations, they stoop to the level of the mob. They allow their voice to blend with the crowd, and in doing so, they appear no greater than the lowest voice among them. Silence or dismissal sends a clearer message than 100 words of justification. A ruler may be hated, accused, or even despised, but as long as he does not explain, he keeps the image of being untouchable. To respond is to step down from the throne and argue in the marketplace. Defense also chains you to the past. To defend yourself means you are stuck replaying accusations, reliving them, fighting shadows that others created. It is the enemy's battlefield, not yours. Meanwhile, time and energy are lost that could have been spent shaping the future, asserting your vision, and directing the crowd toward what matters. The attacker knows this and delights in seeing you waste your strength in denial. Every explanation is a small defeat, each one a thread that binds you to their narrative. Notice the cunning of those who hold influence. They accuse, they hint, they let whispers spread, but they never defend. Even when evidence is brought against them, they remain composed, dismissing it with disdain or ignoring it altogether. The public may murmur, but deep down they respect the one who refuses to kneel to accusations. This respect may not always show as love, but it takes the form of fear, and fear is far more reliable. Defense, on the other hand, is the refuge of the weak. The man who rushes to defend himself reveals not only guilt but insecurity. Even if innocent, his panic convinces others otherwise. His eagerness to explain becomes proof of the very thing he denies. He may think his words clarify, but in truth, they spread the suspicion further. A rumor ignored fades with time, a rumor defended lives forever. This is why defense is weakness. It strips you of the power to define yourself, and places that power in the hands of your enemy. It is not logic that rules men's minds, but perception, and the man who defends appears guilty long before any judgment is passed. Accusations are weapons. Accusations are never about truth. They are about power. To accuse is to place another in the position of defense, to strip them of composure, and to force them into reaction. The one who accuses stands above, as if holding the gavel of judgment, while the accused is dragged into the role of the guilty, whether or not any guilt exists. This is the brilliance of accusation. It requires no evidence, no proof, no foundation in reality. A mere suggestion spoken with conviction creates suspicion. The seed is planted, and once suspicion enters the mind of an audience, it is nearly impossible to remove. The true strength of accusation lies in its asymmetry. The accuser spends only a few words, a single gesture, a whisper in the right ear. Yet the accused must spend hours, even days, trying to undo the damage. The scales are always tilted against the accused. One side attacks with simplicity, while the other drowns in explanation. This imbalance is the reason why accusations have toppled rulers, destroyed reputations, and reshaped kingdoms. The substance of the accusation matters little. It is the frame it creates that does the work. Accusations also exploit the weakness of human psychology. People are drawn more to scandal than to virtue. They believe in rumors not because they are proven, but because they are entertaining. A noble act bores them, but a whispered scandal excites them. The accuser understands this hunger and feeds it carefully. He knows that when people hear an accusation, they do not ask, "Is this true?" They ask, "What if it is true?" That single question is enough to stain a reputation forever. Even if innocence is proven later, the doubt never fully disappears. The accused walks with a shadow that no defense can erase. For this reason, accusations are not simply words but weapons sharper than any blade. They wound reputations, which are often more fragile than flesh. A man may recover from physical injury, but once his name is tainted, it is nearly impossible to cleanse. The most cunning leaders throughout history have used accusations not to destroy bodies, but to destroy credibility, knowing that once a man's reputation is weakened, his power crumbles naturally. Accusations also grant the accuser control of time and narrative. Once an accusation is spoken, it forces the accused into reaction. Instead of pursuing his own goals, he is dragged into explaining, denying, justifying. His agenda is hijacked. He becomes a prisoner of the accusation's rhythm. Even if he manages to refute it, he is still the one playing catch-up, always a step behind, always reacting rather than commanding. The accuser, meanwhile, remains the composer of the play, dictating when and how the drama unfolds. The most dangerous element of accusation is its ability to grow without effort. A single charge, once released, multiplies as others repeat it, twist it, and add their own interpretations. What began as a whisper becomes a chorus, and soon the entire crowd sings the same song of suspicion. The accused cannot fight every voice. He cannot silence every repetition. The accusation becomes larger than the original speaker, transforming into a force of its own, untouchable and enduring. The wise understand that accusations, once launched, are not to be answered in kind but to be recognized for what they are. Strategic tools designed to unbalance, to provoke, and to place the accused on their knees before the public eye. Control the frame. Power does not lie in truth. It lies in the frame through which truth is seen. Whoever defines the frame defines the battle. If you allow another to set the frame, you are already trapped, no matter how clever your arguments may be. Once they choose the terms, the battlefield, and the lens through which others perceive you, your role is reduced to that of a pawn defending within their structure. The true strategist understands that it is never about facts. It is about the context in which facts are placed. To control the frame means to seize the authority to decide what matters and what does not. It means elevating certain details while discarding others, not through explanation but through dominance. Imagine a rival who accuses you of dishonesty. If you answer him directly, you accept his frame. The issue becomes your honesty, and the crowd watches to see if you can prove it. But if you ignore his charge and instead declare that the real question is why he is so desperate to discredit you, you shift the frame entirely. Now the suspicion turns toward him. The crowd wonders about his motives, not your innocence. He is forced to defend, and you remain untouchable. Frames are invisible prisons. Once accepted, they bind both the audience and the accused. The accuser often builds them subtly, slipping their definitions into conversation, so that everyone begins to speak in their language. This is the secret weapon of propaganda, politics, and manipulation. Whoever decides the terms of debate has already won half the battle before it begins. If the ruler is called tyrant, he must argue against tyranny. If he is called weak, he must prove strength. In either case, he dances to the music of his enemies. The only escape is to smash the frame itself and impose a new one. Consider how leaders throughout history have handled attacks. The weak try to answer every charge, piling up explanations in a desperate attempt to appear transparent. The strong do not waste time on such trivialities. They either ignore the frame altogether or replace it with one of their own choosing. When accused of cruelty, they do not defend their gentleness, they proclaim their effectiveness, reframing cruelty as strength. When accused of ambition, they do not deny it, they elevate it as vision. In this way, they turn accusations into proof of greatness, transforming poison into nourishment. The crowd is rarely conscious of how frames control their thinking. They believe they are judging based on facts, when in truth they are responding to the perspective they have been given. This blindness is what makes frames so powerful. To the public, the debate appears genuine, but in reality, it is nothing more than a performance staged by the one who chose the script. By controlling the frame, you decide not only what the crowd sees but how they feel about it. Frames also carry a deeper psychological weight. They tell the audience who holds authority. If you reject the enemy's frame and impose your own, you signal dominance. You are not the one answering questions. You are the one asking them. You are not on trial. You are the judge. The one who frames dictates reality, while the one who defends appears like a supplicant begging for approval. To master power, you must recognize frames the moment they appear. Never step into one built by another. Do not accept their definitions, their questions, or their categories. Instead, redirect, redefine, and rebuild the stage so that you are always the central figure, and your enemy is forced to play by your design. Turn silence into power. Silence is one of the most feared weapons in the arsenal of power. People believe that words show strength, that explanations and defenses prove control, but the opposite is true. The one who rushes to speak betrays his anxiety. The one who fills the air with arguments reveals that he fears the judgment of others. Silence, however, communicates a different message. It suggests certainty, control, and an authority so secure that no defense is necessary. When you remain silent in the face of accusation, you create a void. And a void unsettles the human mind. People cannot bear emptiness. They rush to fill it with their own interpretations. Some will imagine you silent because you are above the matter. Others will think you silent because you know more than you reveal. A few will suspect guilt, but even this suspicion will lack certainty, because you have offered them nothing to grasp. Your enemies will shout, accuse, and demand answers, but your silence forces them to dance alone, their noise echoing in the air while you remain unmoved. The spectacle soon makes them look desperate, while you look untouchable. Silence also shifts the balance of power in subtle ways. Speech is reactive, but silence is commanding. When you stay quiet, you deny your enemy the satisfaction of controlling you. You refuse to step into the frame he has created. Instead, you make him sweat beneath the weight of his own words. His accusations, repeated again and again without your response, begin to look like obsession. The crowd sees his agitation, his persistence, his desperation, and they begin to wonder whether he is hiding something himself. In this way, your silence not only shields you, but also poisons the credibility of your enemy. The art of silence has been used by the most cunning rulers and strategists throughout history. When enemies demanded explanations, they gave none. When rivals shouted in fury, they stood calm and still. The crowd watching began to associate silence with power, composure, and mystery. A single word from such a figure carried the weight of 1,000 speeches, precisely because it was rare. The less you say, the more value each word carries when you finally choose to speak. Silence also has a profound psychological effect on those who attack you. An enemy who receives no reaction is left uncertain. He does not know if his strike has landed. He does not know whether you are planning revenge, whether you are ignoring him out of disdain, or whether you are silently gathering strength for a decisive blow. This uncertainty eats at him, weakening his resolve. He may escalate his noise, making himself appear hysterical. He may retreat in frustration, exhausted by the lack of response. Either way, your silence unbalances him while you remain in control. There is another dimension to silence. It forces others to reveal themselves. When you remain quiet, those around you feel compelled to speak, to explain, to fill the void you have created. In doing so, they expose their thoughts, their fears, and their intentions. By withholding words, you draw out the words of others, gaining knowledge without giving any in return. In power, knowledge is more valuable than defense. To wield silence effectively, you must master your own impulses. Most men cannot endure the weight of accusations without speaking. They rush to justify themselves, to clear their names, to prove their worth. This is weakness disguised as honesty. The strong resist this urge, knowing that silence is often louder than any argument. By refusing to defend, you project an aura of strength that explanations can never achieve. Offense over defense. The one who defends is already beneath his enemy, but the one who attacks dictates the field. Offense is the language of power, while defense is the confession of weakness. To wait for accusations and then scramble to respond is to live on borrowed time, always behind, always reacting to blows already delivered. The true wielder of influence understands that survival does not belong to the one who shields himself, but to the one who strikes first, defines the tone, and forces others to defend instead. When you go on the offensive, you reverse the positions of power. The accuser expects you to answer his charge, to fall into his frame, to kneel before the judgment of the crowd. But if you answer not with excuses, not with explanations, but with bold counterattacks, the ground shifts beneath his feet. He expected you to play the accused, yet suddenly he finds himself explaining, justifying, defending. The balance of strength has flipped, and he is the one scrambling to recover. The brilliance of offense is that it creates momentum. A man in defense is static, stuck in place, waiting for the next blow. But a man on the attack moves forward, seizing space, shaping perception, commanding the rhythm of events. Offense is initiative. It forces the enemy to abandon his plan and adapt to yours. In war, in politics, in life, those who take the initiative bend the future to their will, while those who defend merely endure what is imposed upon them. Consider how accusations lose their sting when met with attack. If they call you ruthless, do not defend your kindness. Declare that ruthlessness is the very reason for your success. If they call you ambitious, do not protest humility. Turn ambition into a crown, a mark of vision that smaller men cannot comprehend. In this way, you not only reject their frame but replace it with your own, transforming weakness into a symbol of strength. Every attack becomes an opportunity to amplify your image rather than diminish it. Offense also serves to distract and redirect. When you strike back, the audience no longer lingers on the question of your guilt or innocence. They become absorbed in the spectacle of your boldness. People are drawn to confidence, to audacity, to those who stand tall when others expect retreat. They admire aggression cloaked in certainty, even if they fear it. The crowd may not love the one who attacks, but they respect him, and respect is more enduring than affection. To remain on offense requires fearlessness. Most men hesitate, worried that striking back will make them appear guilty, or that boldness will spark more criticism. But hesitation is the true danger. Critics will attack regardless. Enemies will accuse regardless. To defend timidly only makes their work easier. To attack boldly makes them stumble, exposes their fragility, and reminds the audience that you are not a victim but a force. The offensive mind also shapes narratives before enemies can even form them. By speaking first, by framing events, by creating suspicion about your rivals before they create suspicion about you, you inoculate yourself against their charges. They are forced to respond to your story, trapped within your definitions. Even if they try to strike back, their blows are weakened because the audience already sees them through the lens you imposed. Offense does not always mean open aggression. Sometimes it means questioning motives, planting doubt, or highlighting contradictions in the words of your enemy. Sometimes it is the calm statement that redirects suspicion without raising your voice. The essence of offense is not noise but initiative, the ability to act rather than react, to impose rather than absorb, to lead rather than follow. The one who embraces offense over defense accepts that power belongs to the bold. Defense pleads for survival, but offense seizes destiny. Power does not belong to those who explain, defend, or justify. It belongs to those who command the frame, wield silence, and strike boldly when others expect retreat. You have now seen the truth: defense is weakness. Accusations are weapons. The frame is everything. Silence terrifies, and offense conquers. Most people live their lives begging for approval, explaining themselves to those who hold no authority, and defending against attacks that should have been ignored. But you are not most people. You are here because you want to rise above the crowd, to master the hidden game of influence, and to wield power with clarity and precision. If this knowledge awakens something in you, then stay with me. Subscribe now, because this is only the beginning, and the next lesson will take you even deeper into the secrets of control that others will never dare to reveal.